The final ball lands deep, Sabalenka stretches, and suddenly it's over. But the real story didn't start with a trophy lift. It started with a message from one of the most powerful voices in tennis history, and what she said might define Elena Rybakina's legacy before it's even fully written. Today, we're breaking down why this Australian Open victory is bigger than just another Grand Slam, why this rivalry is far from finished, and why Billie Jean King stepping in changes the meaning of this moment entirely. Because this wasn't just a win. This was redemption, validation, and a loud reminder that Elena Rybakina is not just part of the elite. She is elite. For anyone who thought her Wimbledon title was a one-time lightning strike, Melbourne just answered that doubt with authority. And if you stay with me, I'll explain why this title could shift the balance of power on the WTA Tour for the next several seasons. Let's go back to the final, because context matters. Across the net stood Aryna Sabalenka, the world number one, the reigning Australian Open champion from their previous clash, and one of the most physically intimidating players in the game. Power, aggression, confidence. Sabalenka brought all of it. But Rybakina walked onto Rod Laver Arena with something even more dangerous. Unfinished business. Their history added weight to every rally. The last time they met in a Melbourne final, Sabalenka walked away with the trophy, and Rybakina walked away with questions. Could she handle the biggest pressure moments? Could she consistently deliver when the spotlight burned brightest? For the past couple of seasons, those questions followed her like a shadow. Solid results, deep runs, but not that defining breakthrough again. Until now. From the first set, you could sense a different energy in Rybakina. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't forcing. She was absorbing Sabalenka's pace and redirecting it with calm precision. That's what makes her so dangerous on hard courts. Her power is quiet. It doesn't scream at you. It suffocates you. Clean ball striking, early timing, and that flat, penetrating depth that steals time away from even the strongest hitters. Winning the first set 6-4 wasn't just about the scoreboard. It was a statement. I belong here and I'm not blinking first. Sabalenka responded like a champion should, raising her intensity, pushing the pace, and grabbing the second set. At that point, you could almost hear the narrative forming again. Is this where Rybakina fades? Is this where Sabalenka's champion mentality takes over? But the third set told a different story. Instead of shrinking, Rybakina grew steadier. Her serve, one of the most underrated weapons in the women's game, became her anchor. Free points when she needed them. Calm holds under pressure. And when the match tightened, she didn't go for reckless winners. She trusted patterns. Trusted her backhand down the line, trusted her ability to outlast a storm. When championship point arrived, it didn't feel like a miracle. It felt earned. A deep, heavy ball, Sabalenka scrambling, and then the error. Rybakina's reaction said everything. Not wild disbelief, not dramatic collapse to court, just a composed smile, a quiet exhale. This wasn't shock. This was confirmation. She knew she was good enough. Now the world had to admit it too. And that's where Billie Jean King enters the picture. Because some voices in tennis carry historical weight. When she speaks, it's not casual praise. It's recognition from someone who helped build the very platform these players stand on. Her message congratulating Rybakina as the Australian Open champion wasn't long, but it was powerful. It placed Rybakina's name into a larger conversation about champions who matter. King also made sure to acknowledge Sabalenka, and that detail matters. This wasn't about tearing one player down to lift another. It was about honoring elite competition. That balance reflects what women's tennis has become. Deep, physical, emotionally intense, and filled with athletes who push each other to uncomfortable heights. When a legend salutes both players, it signals that the rivalry itself is special. But let's focus on what this means for Rybakina's career trajectory. Before this win, she was often described as dangerous, talented, capable. Notice those words. They suggest potential. After this win, the language changes. Now she's a multiple Grand Slam champion on different surfaces. That moves her from threat to standard. Other players now measure themselves against her level. Hard courts in particular now look like Rybakina territory. Her game style is almost engineered for the surface. Big first serve, flat ground strokes, minimal wasted motion, and an ability to take the ball early that robs opponents of recovery time. When she's confident, rallies feel shorter not because she's rushing, but because she's surgically efficient. What impresses me most is her emotional control. Tennis at the highest level is as much about managing nerves as hitting forehands. Rybakina rarely shows panic. Even when Sabalenka surged, there was no visible spiral, no rush service games, no reckless shot selection. That emotional steadiness is what separates consistent champions from occasional finalists. Now let's talk about Sabalenka, because this rivalry is far from one-sided. Losing another major final hurts, especially for a player with her fire and ambition. But here's the truth. Her presence in these matches is exactly why they're so compelling. She forces opponents to play brave tennis. She raises a physical and mental bar, and that's part of why Rybakina's win feels so meaningful. Every great era in tennis has defining rivalries. Think of the contrasts. Power versus precision, emotion versus calm, explosive energy versus quiet control. Sabalenka and Rybakina embody those contrasts perfectly. And with each Grand Slam meeting, the story deepens. This wasn't the end of something. It felt like the middle chapter of a rivalry that could define the next phase of the tour. Another layer that makes this victory special is a journey between majors. After her Wimbledon triumph, Rybakina didn't immediately stack slam finals. There were injuries, inconsistencies, and tournaments where she looked just slightly off. Critics started whispering that maybe her window had passed, that the tour had adjusted to her game. Melbourne just shut that door loudly. Winning a second slam years after the first proves adaptability. It shows she didn't just ride a hot streak. She evolved, handled setbacks, and returned stronger. That resilience is something Billie Jean King has always valued in champions. Not just talent, but staying power. That's part of why her message felt like more than routine congratulations. There's also a symbolic element here. Women's tennis has been searching for its next long-term pillars, players who can carry the sport with both performance and presence. Rybakina's calm demeanor, global background, and clean, powerful style make her incredibly marketable without her having to force a personality. Her tennis speaks first, and that authenticity resonates. And let's not overlook the pressure of expectation. After winning Wimbledon, every big tournament came with added scrutiny. Opponents studied her patterns. Media narratives questioned her consistency. Carrying that weight for multiple seasons and still breaking through again shows a mental toughness that doesn't always get headlines but absolutely wins championships. Looking ahead, the rest of the season just got more interesting. On hard courts, she now enters events not as a dark horse, but as a favorite. That changes how draws unfold. Players approach matches against her differently. Some will press too hard, trying to hit through her. Others will overdefend. Either way, she controls the psychological tone before a ball is struck. And don't forget the ripple effect of legends acknowledging modern stars. Billie Jean King's public praise connects generations. It's a reminder that today's champions are part of a longer story of progress, equality, and competitive excellence. When a pioneer salutes a current player, it reinforces that what's happening now truly matters in the sport's historical timeline. So here's the big question I want you thinking about. Did this Australian Open title officially start the Rybakina era on hard courts, or is this rivalry with Sabalenka going to stay a constant tug-of-war? I genuinely think we're watching the foundation of something special, the kind of back and forth that defines seasons, not just single tournaments. Because moments like this don't live in isolation. They shape confidence, alter rankings, influence scheduling decisions, and even affect how young players model their games. Somewhere right now, a junior player is studying Rybakina's calm between points and realizing that composure can be just as intimidating as raw power. In the end, this wasn't just a trophy ceremony in Melbourne. It was a signal that Elena Rybakina is done being a question mark and is ready to be a benchmark. A signal that Aryna Sabalenka remains a force who will keep pushing her to the limit. And a signal from Billie Jean King that the tennis world is watching this new chapter very closely. Tennis IQ is where we don't just report scores. We break down what they mean, why they matter, and how today's matches shape tomorrow's legends. If you love tennis stories with depth, rivalries with history, and analysis that goes beyond the surface, you're in the right place.